Well, hello and welcome to the Profit Express. I'm Tim Healy, and I'm inviting you to join me each and every Wednesday so you could be prepared, so you could be ready to win the battle for business. That's right. That's what we do right here on the Profit Express. Thanks so much for joining me. And as always, a big thank you to our good friends and sponsors at Corbett Public Relations, where Bill and his team have been protecting and promoting businesses and brands for over 30 years. So listen, do yourself a favor. Visit Bill and his team at CorbettPR.com. That's CorbettPR.com. Welcome aboard, everybody. Now, let's think about this scenario. You have created the world's most delicious pancake mix. You have an awesome logo, beautiful packaging and branding. You have a huge following on social media. Orders are flying in, but all of a sudden, those orders are not flying out, and you can't deliver on your promise to your customers. Well, all of a sudden, the world of logistics and fulfillment just became very important. Now, here's the funny thing. When I hear logistics and fulfillment, I think cardboard boxes and warehouses. But here's something that we should all consider. When logistics throws a wrench in your operations, all of a sudden it became priority number one. But I'm still thinking here on the Profit Express, should I do a show on logistics and fulfillment? I don't know, but I was introduced to a certain somebody who's actually quite passionate about cardboard boxes, warehouses, things like that I never knew of before, 3PL, 4PL, 5PL, hub and spoke models. Wow. And he's actually, if I dare say so, maybe turning the industry on end just a bit. He is Paul Jarrett. He is the CEO of Bulu. And he, along with his wife, Stephanie, are not just moving boxes, they are actually packaged good experts. And they're so good at what they're doing, they have a client roster that includes the likes of Clorox and Amex and Disney, to name a few. But I think part of what their passion is all about is not just the big behemoths like Disney, but being able to work with people like you and giving a competitive advantage to the small guys so they can compete with the likes of Disney. And this is all in the world of logistics and fulfillment. So, hey, this is a first-time topic for me here on the Profit Express. But when I get anybody who's passionate about what they do, and it's as important as it is in the world of e-commerce, it's a topic that I want to tackle. And there's a few interesting twists to the story. The story actually started in a trailer park in Nebraska. Stephanie and Paul took their business. It was run by VCs for a while, VC-backed, if you will. Now, they have ownership, so it's been quite a journey. And it's going to be a journey not just from the entrepreneurial side of things, but also from the logistics side, that it's going to be packed. It's going to be a packed show with lots of great stuff. So again, if you are that entrepreneur who is in the e-commerce world, the packaged goods world, man, you just tuned into the right podcast at the right time. So it's a pleasure to welcome aboard Paul Jarrett, CEO of Bulu. How are you today?
Yo, Tim, let's light him up, man. I need you to follow me, and I'm looking around for who's coming on. No, that was phenomenal, man. Hats off to you. That was like artistic, and also shouts to Bill at Corbett PR. You always need those people on your team. That's what's up. So no, thanks for having me, man. I'm pumped.
No, my pleasure. Listen, the show, this is episode 570. You and I were talking before we started. I've never talked about logistics and fulfillment. No offense, right?
It's boring, right?
I could care less about it.
I get it.
Yeah, I could care less about it. But then I was introduced to you. So I check you out. I see some interviews. I go to the Bulu website. And from the business perspective, from the Profit Express perspective, I have a newfound respect for the world of logistics and fulfillment. Let me say that.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I was the first person when we raised capital and started the company. I was like, I want nothing to do with that part. We will always outsource it. And of course, 12 years later, we're solving the first problem that we had. So no, I'm excited to talk about it because we love it in a weird way. Yeah.
Somebody has to. So, all right.
Yeah.
So As I said, I teased it. The story started in a trailer park in Nebraska.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
where did, or take us back to the beginnings? Because I love that part of the story, the beginnings of Bulu.
Yeah. So I grew up in a trailer park, and everybody, actually just this morning, somebody was asking me, like, what was your first job? And I was like, pretty much taking trailer parts and putting it on eBay, or people would get evicted and I would, race in and grab all this stuff left over and try to sell it on eBay. But yeah, I grew up there, till I was, I was pretty old, and we moved across to another part of town or whatever. But we started the company. I would say my wife and I, Stephanie, who really truly is the operations, the person running. We try to pull her onto this stuff, but she's running a logistics company, and I get to do a lot of the fun parts. But we started off with originally a subscription box, and our thesis was kind of, nobody knows what the value is of a sample packet. If
Mm-hmm.
we can help brands understand, you get this packet in X amount of hands, and here is the actual ROI, not what the conversion is, not whatever. It was like, man, if we could really get the ROI of a sample packet, that's interesting. Well, right there, somebody should have stopped us and said, sample packets are kind of the hardest thing in the world to ship. People don't bark at them. They fall apart. So right out of the gate, we're picking a category, which also makes sense because the opportunities tend to live in the things that people don't want to poke with a stick and, see what's going on. So we
Right.
started with that concept. We then went, hey, actually there's this subscription box trend, and there's 5 of them in makeup right now. Nobody's doing a subscription box in any other area. What if we give samples, 4 to 5 premium vitamin supplement health samples to people, charge them like $5-10? They get to tell us what they like, but ultimately we're working on a break-even model to create a database to know what actually works in sampling. What I would say is we were the entrepreneurs that had a concept. Roughly about 50 days later, we had 1.5 million in the bank. We hadn't sold a thing. We didn't have a functioning website. I was terrified we accidentally did something illegal because, here's Trailer Park,
Wait.
Nebraska.
All right. So
Yeah,
let me stop you there. So I think I just caught on an interesting part of the story. So
yeah,
you were 50 days in, you had 1.5 million in the bank. How'd you get the 1.5 million?
yeah. I mean, this is the thing. It is the thing that we actually didn't tell people for like a decade because we were oddly embarrassed by it. But Stephanie and I had such a great track record of New York City, Nike, Lowe's. Like we had a record of being in the brainstorm sessions at advertising agencies, which is where we started our careers,
Right.
having these ideas. And it was like, we just being, we're working in New York City, and she's from Wahoo, Nebraska. I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska. We are from the quote, like, no joke, Larry the Cable Guy is neighbors with my uncle out on a farm. So we are literally from the get it done culture, right? Like that's how we
I
are.
love it. I
And
love it.
these ideas would die, and you're going, that is a brilliant idea. What? And we really quickly learned that through the process of production and execution, usually something was a little bit off, right? Like with the product or with getting it to all the events or what, there was always something. And people were just really quick to go like, oh, good idea, but we don't have anybody with a driver's license. And I would raise my hand in the room and go, I have a driver's license. And
Mm-hmm.
the room in New York City would freeze. And they go, yeah, but it's a truck with a banner on it. And I go, I can drive a large truck. And they're like, wait, what? And it was just raising my hand as an intern saying, how can I help? How can I help? Well, next thing we're doing these bigger projects, and we kind of thought to ourselves, man, we are killing ourselves 60 to 80 hours a week. We're wired like this. We're always going to be like this. We should probably do our own thing. We should probably have a piece of the pie. I don't know if you're familiar with like Cobalt tools, but that was a
Sure.
really popular one that we launched. Smart Chicken. We did a pitch that was so intimidating to a company that the entire company was acquired by Breyer's Ice Cream because of the concept and what we were going to do. So we had some real,
Get
we
out of
work
here.
well together. Yeah, we work well together. And so we decided to start something. And we kind of had this idea. We're running a half marathon, and I had worked in vitamin supplements. We both had worked in packaged goods, and samples are the thing that works, but people will only spend so much money and then they will stop sampling. And we just never understood that concept, right? Like it's just customer acquisition costs to lifetime value, payback, what's the margin? Why would you ever stop on something that works? You know?
Right.
And we
Right.
could never get a good answer. So we said, okay, if we can figure out how to get the ROI on the sample packet, that's really interesting. Oh, look at this subscription box idea. We ship it out to people, we break even, we collect information, and then we can sell them more product. That's interesting. Well, we came with a deck. We were actually visiting back home in Nebraska from San Francisco. We were living there. So it was one of those, hey, we're coming home for the holidays. Yeah, we're working on this concept or whatever. I had no clue what an angel investor was, what venture capital was, like not a clue in the world. You know,
Right.
where I'm from, in the trailer park, if you don't pay your bills, your El Camino gets towed. That's the end of that, right? Like that's that's what I know, right? And if you don't do that, your trailer's getting towed. And if you don't do that, like Bubba's showing up with a bat, right? So I'm like, whoa, these people are raising capital and doing this thing, and wait, if it doesn't work, you don't go to jail. Like I don't get it, right? So after
Right.
kind of walking through that, I was talking to a buddy about it, and he goes, well, I run the Nebraska Angels investment group. I'm like, I don't know what that means. So after kind of getting walked through everything,
Yeah.
we show up over the holidays, we have our deck, and we do know how to present, we know how to get a deck together because we're from
Sure.
advertising, right? So, side note, really funny thing. Right before the presentation, the day before, we were Buku Box, or Buku was going to be the name of the company. But
Right.
we ran into some issues of somebody claiming the name, and we're like, just change it. What was the next one on the list? Bulu. So, no kidding, when we handed our documents over to the people that we were presenting in front of, the paper was still a little damp because we had just changed the name.
Wow.
And we
Wow.
were totally panicked about it. And I walk in, and this guy looks at me, goes, wait, Bulu, I thought you were Buku. And I just shrugged my shoulders like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so this poor man probably to this day thinks he screwed up everything.
Oh,
I
that's
just
awesome.
so we present, we get done, and immediately after, like we get emails and phone calls, and we're like, oh, this is interesting. And then somebody said, I want to leave the deal. And we didn't even know what to do after that. So we're just scrambling, calling. And the whole time we're just going, it's just a website that collects emails. We don't know how we're going to get this. We don't know any of that. And really a lot of the feedback was,
Wow.
we know Paul and Stephanie enough where you're going to figure it out. They want to be part of it. So yeah, it was less than 60 days. We had 1.5 million from the moment I said we should really look at this thing to opening up your bank account and going, oh no, what do we do now? There's 1.5 million in the bank account, So yeah, that's how it started, man. It was like
So,
accidental entrepreneurs almost.
yeah, wow. I didn't know the story was this interesting. So you're both from
Yeah.
Nebraska. You end up now, did you meet in Nebraska or did you meet in New York when you're doing advertising? You and your wife?
We met in college at Nebraska. I had transferred.
Okay.
I played football. I was a starter. I was done with it. I went to Nebraska. I
Okay.
picked up first major without math, and she was head of the club, and that she had me. Once I saw her, I was like, that's it. So we've worked together since college.
Okay. So then you're both marketing New York, San Francisco. Then
Yep.
you pitch your idea. 50, 60 days later, 1.5 in the bank, and you've got no website. Oh my God.
It's, we didn't. We were so behind and trying to figure it out that this is again just one of those unbelievable things where I am calling Shopify, screaming at them, going,
Right.
"You guys told me this was better than Magento, blah blah blah." Well, I get forwarded to Toby in customer service, and Toby's super cool. He's like, "Yeah, I do this. I do." Contact Suresh. He knows how to hack the system. He's just telling me what to do. Finally, I find out it's Toby, the CEO of Shopify.
Oh,
And the whole time he's going, Paul, I really think you should think about building a subscription payment app. And I'm like, what does this guy in customer service know? and I'll tell you what, to this day, I think about that. Like, I think about how important it is to listen to everybody. And even actually our first funding,
Wow.
we had 25K put in our bank, and our investor goes, "You just made your biggest mistake. You only asked me for 25. I would have went 1.5 million." So it's those lessons along the way that it's just crazy. 12 years later, you know, somebody in customer service, I'll be talking to them. I'm like, "No, tell me more." I get people that knock on my door selling stuff, and I make them walk me through the sales process step by step because I want to hear it. I want to know. So yeah, but it's pretty wild. That's how we got started.
So, man, that's the great thing about, having people like you on the show. There's always an awesome story behind a great company. And yours delivered, Paul. There was a better story than I thought. But anyhow, so now I don't know the retail world. I'm in the world of sales development, sales training, sales coaching, right? In the B2B world. So I don't know retail. Subscription box. What is a subscription box? What products? It's just like all those services you see on the internet, and you guys are the ones behind the fulfillment of them?
So when we started, we had our own box, and the subscription boxes, people a lot of times think of Dollar Shave Club or
Yeah, I
Birchbox or
was thinking of
something.
that, right.
Yeah, what I tell people is it's funny, when we started, we really carved out the phrase sample box, but then everybody took subscription box because we kind of own that. And then we
Yeah.
ran to like kind of own that word marketing wise. But ultimately, the definition would be multiple varied items packed together, shipped on a recurring basis. So to me,
Okay.
it's just a type of logistics. And the subscription box is kind of the marketing element to try to separate it from everything, right? So,
Okay.
because if I said, "Hey, sign up for 10 months, get samples of vitamins and supplements," you go, "Get out of here." But if I said,
Yeah.
"Hey, subscribe, try them, give feedback," now that's a different beast, right? So yeah, we started doing that, and we had Bulu Box, and it went incredibly well. In less than 2 years, we had 60,000 subscribers. We had all the metrics that people dream of. And I tell people right out of the gate, like, look, it's on the CEO, is my fault. But we went out to raise capital, and we just couldn't get any interest. And here, imagine you're 18 months in, and you didn't raise capital that long ago, and you're hitting these metrics, and you're presenting to get more capital, and you're going, "Hey, I got the customer acquisition cost. I got the LT. I have all the metrics you told me to get. Like, where is everybody?" Well, really, now I look back, and I was talking to a lot of software people about like a physical good, and I was speaking to the wrong audience. So,
Ooh,
hard
okay.
lesson, but we did raise capital. And on the side, in our spare time, we built a software and sold it, which is called rangeme.com now. I don't know if you're familiar.
No.
But that was like, so we had our subscription box, bulubox.com. And then we basically created a linkedin.com for consumer packaged goods. We couldn't run both of them. They were both burning money, but if we would have picked one, we would have been profitable. So we were really torn on, man, here's a subscription box, here's the software. They're both selling more, but we just can't do both. And right about the time we were about ready to not do subscription box stuff, GNC calls us up and says, "We want to buy your company." That part didn't quite work out. They said, "Look, why don't you make us a subscription box program?" And I said, "We are going to charge you an arm and a leg." And they said, "Go for it." So we turned around and said, "Well, we're selling the software off," and we had people lined up for that. And we're going to keep the subscription box for testing,
Right.
but we're going to do subscription boxes for big brands because our advertising background, we know how much added value for advertising and marketing just gets left over. You buy 600 TV commercials, they're going to give you little 15-second donuts and whatever. So our thesis then was, if we create a subscription box for a Disney, for a GNC, for these big retail brands, and they commit a really small amount of added value that they're probably not even going to use, let us talk to the marketing media buyer, because most people don't even know that exists.
Right.
Then we think that we can build a profitable model. And so we did it, and it took off with GNC, then Disney. So we were creating subscription boxes, full turnkey website, customer service, concept, everything, for some of the biggest brands in the world.
All right,
And
wait, so let me stop you there.
yeah,
Let me stop you there. Okay.
yeah,
So I'm hearing you just had like another $1.5 million comment there. So you have these two companies you're running. They're both burning. So you
yeah,
know you got to offload one. Then
yep.
for the subscription box, GNC comes to you guys. They want to buy you. It doesn't work out. They said, create a subscription box for us. You're going to, and then you said, and I quote, we're going to charge you an arm and a leg. And they said, go for it. So
I was
I'm
pissed.
talking on behalf of the listeners, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
wait, how did he just step into that big steaming pile of poop?
Yeah,
How,
yeah,
how did you
yeah.
connect with GNC like that?
Let's see. I know that I always feel like when I listen to some shows and stuff, I'm like, that's BS, right? It's the dumbest story ever. I think the reality is always more interesting, even if it feels boring. So, let's see here. NPR had came and visited us and did a show on us. And I was kind of talking to the interview guy, and he was a day early, and I was kind of like half in, half out, and trying to figure out a schedule. And just on a complete whim, because we're running out of cash, I think I'd Googled the previous days, like how to shut down a business. Like that's how close we were, which,
Sorry.
it's probably happened more than once in 12 years, but we were able to eke by, I think we figured out like 3 more weeks or 3 more months, somewhere in there. And so,
Wow.
here I am, NPR's there, they want to interview us. And I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out how to live another day. Right.
Yeah.
And as I was booked for a trip that I was paid for to speak on, I just did a really quick search of what companies are around there. And I remember, and see, I won't even remember if I was in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. I'm Midwest Nebraska guy, right? Anything on the East Coast with a P, PH, it's just Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, whatever. It's all the
Yep.
same to me.
Sure.
So I randomly tweeted at GNC's CMO, I will be in your city these dates. I would love to just have a beer with you or whatever. And I think I did it 2 or 3 more times, and I got a direct message that said, if you tweet me one more time, I will never speak with you. However, if you meet me here at this time, sure, I'll buy you a coffee. So that's what it was. Well, the irony is that we were in Philadelphia and the actual meeting was in Pittsburgh. So we didn't say a thing, but we hopped in a rental car and just
Yeah.
broke
Yeah.
every speeding limit law. Show up there, tell them what we're doing. We didn't know. They already completely knew who we were and what we were doing, like way before we tweeted at them. And we went there and they said, we want to buy your company. And we're just blown away because this is off a tweet,
Oh
an
man.
accidental tweet in the wrong city that had no reason to happen. Right. So we keep it cool. We leave. Long story short, it doesn't quite work out. They had manufacturing issues that they had to deal with. I was frustrated. So I
Sure.
basically said, like, hey man, like we've done due diligence, we've done all this stuff. Like now you're asking me to do the thing that I knew that you wanted. I'm upset. I'm going to charge you an arm and a leg because I really thought we were going the software out with it.
Okay.
And our CFO overheard me and he threw a sticky note with a price. And I shrugged and he goes, each box, that's what we'll charge. And so I read the note, said whatever. And next thing I know, it was never intended to be like a thing. It was just, I threw it out there. It worked. And we shipped like 8 the first month. And then we shipped like 5,000 the next month. And then I remember it went 80,000 the next month. And we're like, oh, we need to pay attention to this.
We're
And
on
then
to
we just
something.
copied the model and we just went to big brands and everybody wants to know how I did it. And I'm like, I'm telling you right now, I picked up the phone. I went to trade shows. I tweeted. I did the opposite of what you're supposed to do because it's the only way that I could figure that a big brand might stop for 0.8 seconds to look at me. So I did the
Wow.
opposite of whatever you're supposed to do to land those brands.
So, man, this show has already taken a number of interesting twists here today, Paul.
Well, so that was pre-COVID. And then COVID hits, and we're in the acquisition talks yet again with very large dollar amounts, very large brands that I probably can't say the name of them, but it's
Right.
real.
Sure. Sure.
And I remember one of the final due diligence calls we had to do on Zoom because of COVID. And just like halfway through, I remember just going like, this is not going to work. Like, there's no way that their bosses are going to be like, go spend the money. And we got off of that call, and one by one, like all these big brands are like, we're hitting pause, we're doing this. And it didn't go away, but we knew the speed at which big brands operated, and which is much slower. And we knew that just a little bit of lag in the shipping is
Right.
really going to cause issues. And, I think to say it appropriately, some people wanted a certain direction of the company. And Stephanie and I saw, wait a second, there is a huge opportunity to, instead of sell big brands, all of the stuff that we kind of learned from these big brands by shipping and how to get onto retail shelf,
Mm-hmm.
why can't we not offer that to any brand? Of course,
Right.
we'll still work with big brands,
Yeah. Yeah.
but look at what we cut out of the supply chain. Look what Disney did here. Look what GNC, look what Clorox, look what America, look at all these little supply chain things that we learned and had to learn. I don't really see a reason why we can't offer this to somebody that's shipping 20 a month. And so we slowly kind of came out. We bought the company in October of 2023 after, a very long time of negotiating with our venture capitalists. And super grateful for everybody involved. They said, okay, we're going to give you guys a shot, but you take the whole thing. This is what we want for payment. And yeah, we don't see it, but good luck. And it was terrible. Tim, it was terrifying because
Wow.
here we are
Wait,
12 years in.
so
Go
this
ahead.
just happened. You're talking October 2023, so it's less than a year ago.
Yeah, it feels like both a lifetime and yesterday away. But man, I've been locked up for 2 years, not able to kind of talk about anything. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
social media went away, speaking went away. Like, I went under a rock because, I listened to what I was told because we lost control of the company essentially, so I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm just going to do what I'm told to do. And it was rough, man. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And, I'm intentionally kind of not sharing a lot about it because I know that mentally I got to kind of work through,
Yeah.
what was my ego, what was their ego, what was true, what was whatever. So I'm just going to put a pin in that, like any good
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
entrepreneur, will put that in a
Yeah.
drawer. But I will say this, that, as much as investors and everybody do say it's all the numbers, it's all the numbers. And I think you might appreciate this. Like, it's not, it's the story, it's the emotion, it's the sale. Because I
Yeah.
have stood up there and I have given incredible numbers that you really feel like anybody would fall over. But man, if they don't feel it, if they don't see it, if they don't, Maya Angelou, people remember how you made them feel, not what you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. So when I look back, I go, man, that was a really rough 2 years. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Um, Super grateful for everybody involved, but it was kind of like, I actually came out of an arm surgery. And the first thing my wife said to me, she goes, she is a co-founder. She goes, well, I have paperwork for you to sign. And I was kind of like, oh no. I just had surgery. Like, literally, a house is falling apart, body's falling apart. Everything is falling apart.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Get a pen in your hand. Let's go.
yeah, I'm like, I don't have anything to give you but like student debt. Like, do you
Wow.
really want
Wow.
that? And she goes, no, no, no. This is like 100. This is everything we wanted and more. And I was like, okay, let me use let's sign this. And we got it. And then all of a sudden, imagine if for 12 years, you're doing board meetings, you're reporting to people. The last 2 years, it's a little bit different dynamic. But then somebody goes, hey, wake up. You own 100% of the business and you got to like do some paperwork and a bunch of other things. So in a weird way, there's like
Wow.
this reignition of like,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
a little bit like a new business in a sense, but and it's very weird for us to not have to get approvals and to just go. So now it's kind of electric over here right now. Yeah, but
So, all
we were
right.
terrified. Terrified.
So this is interesting. So others didn't see it, but you and your wife did. Where essentially, because you had the business that you were doing with Disney, Clorox, Amex,
Yeah.
GNC. So you kind of paid for this learning experience, if you will, and kind of paid to know how this model works. And they say, hey, can we do it for, a regular, like you said, some companies moving 20 units a month. So let's take
Yeah.
a totally different twist here, Paul.
Yeah.
Again, today's guest, Paul Jarrett, CEO of Bulu. Um, so you have somebody who's not a global brand or a household
Right.
name like a GNC,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're entering e-commerce. They're entering into the world of packaged goods and selling packaged goods. What should they begin to try to understand and know as that small business who's entering this space? What do they need to know?
Yeah. I'm very opinionated on this, and I'm not going to say that I'm correct. I am speaking from probably thousands of calls in the past 6 months that I really work hard to get out there. I think that post-pandemic, everything is different. Things have changed. One of the big things that happened, Facebook and Apple changed their policies. A lot of digital marketing isn't quite working the same way. So we took a step back and went, wait, where can you grow? Can you spend more in digital marketing? No, there's not enough margin. Can you do this? Can you do that? And we kind of realized wow, the game isn't set up well for new products to compete with other brands because of volume and margin discounts and all that stuff. So we really thought we were going to be more of a ads, we thought we were going to do something else. And so here I am, trying to figure out the pay, just get the business, and you're like, okay, crap, how are we going to make money? We just fired 250 people at the request of not us, but somebody, we have everything in place, but oh no, how are we going to make money?
Right.
So we were calling people, going to our kind of bag of tricks. And, I really think that sometimes you kind of have to get to the point where there is no hope to see the thing right in front of you, right? Like you've done everything. And I was kind of sitting back one day, and this guy calls me up. His name's Ralph. His product is called Paracana. And he calls me up. He says, look, people are telling me to call you, blah, blah, blah. You can fix my package, fix whatever. And I was like, nothing was working. And I would never talk to somebody like this normally, but I was like, hey, tell me about it. And I was like, all right, well, here's what you got to do. You got to change this, this, this. Like, what else you want to know? And he's like, that's really good. I was like, well, yeah, we'll see if you do it. Well, to his credit, Ralph goes out, changes packaging, messaging, all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa. Here's kind of like one of the few people that'll talk with me and work with me and not, hang up the phone on me when I'm trying to sell him something.
Right.
And then I said, Ralph, like, what's the challenges or whatever? And it was, I thought that Ralph got tired of talking to me because I was like coaching him up. And I go over to one of our account managers and I go, Tanya, whatever happened to that Ralph guy? And she stops and she looks at me and she goes, you didn't hear? I was like, oh no, what, did he die or something? And she goes, no. Just look at this. And I go, okay. And she types into her computer, Paracana, hits enter. And just page after page, he's selling everywhere. And I go, whoa, what? And she looked at me and she goes, it worked. And I go, no. And she goes, yeah. I go, hold on. So what had worked was we thought, and I'd always kind of thought this, but I could never kind of find anybody crazy enough to do it, right? And as a company, we were making plenty of money with big brands. But I basically told Ralph, I said, look, we know how to ship directly to homes. We know retail. We figured out how to put subscription in Disney theme parks. So somebody buys a box and then they go home and the rest are. We have been asked to do some of the hardest things in technology and logistics. And with enough time and money, we figured it all out. It's just difficult and it's no fun, right? For most people. But that's why it's fun for us, because it's really hard and everybody says you can't do it. So here we are. When we first had Bulu Box, we couldn't get it everywhere that we needed to. And then when we were working with big brands, they're paying us a lot of money to be able to get it to places that they don't normally get it. And we got to scale it. Okay, now I'm working with Ralph. He's all ears. He's willing to try anything because it's not working for him either. Right. And now he did a little bit of what we thought he should do, and it took off. Okay, let me find somebody else. And so what we're doing is we're calling people up and we're just saying this to them. We said, look, Ralph, Bulu has learned how to ship to stores, ship to homes, and customer service. We have all of the APIs connected, software. That's great. A lot of people claim that, right? We have the software connect to any retailer. Well, the part that they miss is that the specifications for receiving to a store or a distribution center, you get these manuals that are like 80 pages, and you can ship a wood pallet to that GNC, but plastic to that one. It is very nuanced, right? EDI compliance and more.
Really? Okay.
And I said, not only do we know the software, but we actually have documented most of the places, Target or whatever, we know physically what we have to do to ship them there. Like, it's kind of like secondhand. And if you look at what we've been doing, it's really complicated kits. It's really complicated, like light manufacturing. Like, we're doing the hardest product with the hardest brands in the hardest area. Like, my simple thing is, how do you bring it down? So we told Ralph, we said, hey, go call mid-level bricks and mortar retailers and tell them this. Just say, hey, we can ship through your store. Customers can order. We'll drop ship. Great. But then go tell them, hey, look, I want you to carry my product on your shelf. I don't want you to have to buy a pallet. I don't want you to have to buy a case. I want you to click this link and you can buy 2 grape and 1 strawberry. Whatever you want to buy, Bulu is going to get it out by 11 a.m. the next day. And he kind of was like, is that a big deal? And I go, I don't know. It feels like it, and I'm friends with a lot of players. Like, I don't know why it wouldn't be, but, somebody's going to probably tell us don't or whatever. So he does it. And in the process, everybody's thinking sales. And I'm like, no, it's not about the sales. If Google sees your product is in 50 or more physical locations, I don't care if they're the same store, if they're different stores, if it's a barber shop and a gas station, whatever it is, you get in those locations. And I don't know what it is, and the big brands don't either, but all of a sudden people start going to Amazon. They start coming to your website. A rising tide raises all ships, right? Mm-hmm. And so he does that. And I go, okay, now we can ship directly to customer. And I go, Ralph, go plug in TikTok, go plug in whatever you want. I really want to stress test this thing. And so ultimately we net it out with, we can say, we provide 5 PL services at 3 PL rates, which a lot of people are like, don't know what that means. So we net it out to, we do the tricky ship, or what we really do is we empower brands of any size to ship like a major brand. And most of those times we're saving them margins somewhere in the supply chain because of what we learned for 8 years-ish doing it for big brands. And it's a bit different, it's a game changer because it's wild. So, it's working. Yeah.
Wait, all right. So this guy, Ralph, calls, you kind of give him some quick advice. You don't hear from him. You think he kind of blows you off. All of a sudden you talk to one of your agents and you're like, whoa, this guy's blowing up. And what's the name of his company?
Paracanna, Paracanna. It's a CBD. So it's a gummy mix. Right. There's no THC or CBD. So it's a confusing product for people.
Okay. So now, and again, I'm just learning this, listening to the show and listening to you, Paul. Like I said, I don't know retail. It's not my thing. So you get him, a small business, and the pitch to the store is they don't have to commit to, larger shipments, pallets, et cetera, et cetera. You can get a handful.
Yep.
And so it makes it easier for a small guy to get on the shelf and then really just expand the footprint. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, because if you really think about like bricks and mortar retail, how many independent stores do you know locally, right? Yeah. Well, nobody's really going to those people. And if they do, then they're going to say, buy a bunch of pallets, and it's probably some product that nobody wants, right? Well, what if, big box retailers, the margin, they're getting more aggressive. It's more difficult. There's more requirements. Right. A lot of the margin is kind of evaporated there. Digital online, yes, absolutely. There's opportunity, but that Apple Facebook policy change really messed up a lot of people. Well, where's the area that nobody's looking? What about all these bricks and mortar stores around us? And there's plenty of people that have 100 stores, 200 stores, 1 store. Like, nobody's really working with them. They're an afterthought. But if we can solve a problem for those buyers, and it works for the brands, now all of a sudden the big box are going, wait, what is Red Clover 200 stores know that I don't know? What is happening here? And the beauty is then the big brands will actually come with decent terms. And like I told Ralph, I said, whatever they say, tell them no. Just keep telling them no. We have a client called Buy Optimizers and she's on LinkedIn, and probably about 2 to 4 new retail locations every week for the past 4 months. She posts like, buy optimizers got into this store. So yeah, just it's a concept that hasn't happened before. And it's working.
Wait, so
I have this impact on people. You're like, wait, you're a knucklehead. But wait, is it really working? I'm like, yeah, go to LinkedIn.
I never said you were a knucklehead. I
Okay.
said you might have looked like a knucklehead, but no, you're not a knucklehead. I'm kidding.
Oh, I'm a knucklehead. I just keep trying to go to work. That's the genius of it, right?
So no, but you said something, and again, for the listener, for the viewer, they're like that guy Ralph. His name was Ralph, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And
Yeah.
so everybody knows the big box names, whether
Yeah.
it's Whole Foods or Costco, everybody knows those names. But you're saying, again, because you know the retail space, that there are thousands of stores that might have 1 location, 10 locations, or 200 that nobody knows about, that nobody bothers with either. But it's like a perfect entree for, the smaller player.
And I would say market size wise, the non-big box retailers actually make up a ton more of the market. It's just, there's never been the ease of, hey, here's my API, plug it in. Oh, and I know that it's going to be packed to spec.
Right.
That combination hasn't really happened before. So yeah, yes to what you're saying. Yeah.
Man, that's really interesting. So that's a game changer for the small business owner like that, the small consumer goods person.
I'm so happy and proud of our team because, like, truly, to see great products and to see people put their blood, sweat, and tears, and then to watch them over the years go to retail, and for some odd reason it doesn't work out. They have a Best Buy instead of expiration date or whatever silly thing it is, and it's kind of crushing to watch, right? And to be able to come back to that audience and go, hey, you know what? We know what's happening. We get the game. Here's a tool that is very different, and it seems so simple, but just make a list of 100 and just call them. You don't even have to do it. Just prove me wrong, please. And we have some really big names. A lot of YouTuber influencers. That's been really cool because now they don't just have to sell on YouTube. They can actually get into stores. So yeah, it's fun, man. Yeah.
Wow. So, all right. Let's go back to the entrepreneurial part of it. So this is very, very interesting, and the fact that you're doing it with your wife, because it's not always easy to be in business with a family member, especially a wife.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you guys,
we're pretty open about it.
Yeah, you guys are making it work. So kudos to both of you. But here's one thing I want to go back to for the listener of the show. So you said there was a few times that you went online and Googled, how to shut down a business when you guys were on the edge, on the brink, right?
Oh yeah.
And then you said a little later in the interview, I just felt like there was no hope. So you've taken us through your journey, and you start off with 1.5 million, not knowing how you got it, and then when you had great numbers and you went to money, then nobody gave you the money. I mean, this is just a quintessential, entrepreneurial success story. And I'm hearing it, and you're like, yeah, just make calls, just prove me wrong, just do it. So here's the question for you, Paul. As you look at the success that you guys have enjoyed to this point, okay, you just bought back the company October 2023. You guys are in charge. You're not answering to those VC guys anymore. What do you think has been your greatest attribute as an entrepreneur that's gotten you to the point you're at today?
It's a good question. I would say, if I'm being honest and sincere, probably the most important thing that I've learned is, it's what's to say? Yeah, when you point at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you, and there's one pointing that way. But if I could summarize it, I mean, I really remember having a moment when I went, and this is not too long ago. probably, I would say, in my journey, probably about year 2 or 3, there was a big like self-awareness moment. Like, I mean, I broke down. I was like, what is happening to me? Everything's going awesome. And I kind of sorted out like, okay, I'm just negative. Like I'm making things up in my head. And I kind of sorted through that. And I thought kind of, mentally and, it's like, I'm tough, and I kind of had this moment of like, well, what happens when the most mentally tough person in the world has to fight with the most mentally tough person, internally.
Yeah.
And I just had this moment. I remember negotiating. I just went like, man, that's my ego. Like that is absolutely my ego. Why am I doing this thing? And just, I think the best attribute is learning over time to actually stop in the moment and just look at somebody and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm frustrated. You don't have to do, and it really catches people off guard when you're like, I messed up because of my faults. Can you just forgive me? Can we move on from there? And people are shook. They don't know what to do with it, but that is the truth. And so I think knowing when it's okay to let a little bit, like I would say this, knowing the difference between confidence and ego, there's a real gray area in there. And you need to be very aware of that. Like, are you doing it to be right? Or are you doing it for the betterment of the team? And you need to constantly sort that out. And usually if something is really not operating and people are pushing and you think like, they're doing it, whatever, like you really need to step back and go like, why am I in this situation? And I'm not talking internally, I'm talking everything, like there's so much ego with us humans. And if you can just be aware of it in the moment, I think by far that is the one thing I would give all of my money and put everything I could into it just to make sure that that would be the lesson that I take away after 12 years of the company.
So it's keeping your ego in check.
Yeah, I'd say difference between understanding what's confidence, ego, but yes, keeping the ego in check. Yeah, because I do also think you got to let it out sometimes. Because like maybe there's confidence, ego, and maybe in between there's swagger, and like you're in sales, you gotta do the thing. You know what I mean? But like when that thing gets off the leash, you better go put it on real quick. Yeah.
So there was several moments. Now, you said you Googled, how to close down a business. Did you want to quit, or was it just running out of cash? Like we're done, or was it like I'm done with this, I'm quitting?
Which time, Tim? I would say early on in the company, we did not want to quit. I am very honest with everybody. I'd say, the last, probably July of 2023, it was just, I'm done. We were both just away from me. Like, I'm so tired of it. So, I mean, we really thought we were going to quit. We were searching for other jobs, and it was almost in the act of doing that.
Right.
Then we realized, like, what are we doing? We have everything here. And then we just said, you know what? We're going to do what we always do. We are going to play firm. We're going to play fair, and we're going to go through the finish line. Like, come hell or high water, we're going to do the right thing. We're going to play the long ball and let the chips fall where they may. And that has always been our motto of, it's like, always play the long ball, always do the right thing, even at the cost of profit. Because in the end, when you're on your deathbed, that's actually when it's going to matter, right? Like we can look back and go, we did the best we could with what we knew. So,
Paul, this has been a great conversation. It really, really has. And like I said, I've never talked to a logistics fulfillment guy before here on the show.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're the first
I
one.
don't blame you. They don't know what to do with me, man. I go visit people that come, and they're just like, they don't know if they want to fight me, or they're just like, what are you? And I'm like, I am a advertising guy that never saw the best ideas grow. And if it takes me and us being here to make sure that things can scale and grow,
right.
Man, it's cool. It's just solving problems and curiosity. And the fun thing is, I have more software developers that are dying to just, because one thing we do have is you get to hold the product. You get to look at the thing that you help create. And that there is something different about seeing it that's rewarding. So yeah, we're here for a reason. We think we're a little bit ahead of the curve right now.
All right, so here's one last quick one before I let you go. And again, it's been a great conversation.
Sure.
Paul Jarrett, CEO of Bulu. I am always fascinated with family-owned companies that succeed.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about your wife, Stephanie, it's a husband-wife relationship. What is the greatest lesson your wife has taught you being in business together?
The greatest lesson that Stephanie Jarrett has ever taught me would be when she looked at me and she said, "What's going on in your mind?" And I said, "This, that, the other thing." She goes, "Would you speak to your mother the way that you just told me what's going on in your head?" I said, "No." She said, "Would you speak to your little sister?" I said, "No." She said, "What about me?" I go, "No." And she looks me dead in the eye and she goes, "Why is it the most important person in the world you're talking to in a horrible way? I think that might be the problem." And boy,
Wow.
you want to talk about a lightning bolt. I crumbled there. I was like, I'd never thought about it like that. And that was mentally learning that it isn't, that's all you got in you. Like one more, it isn't that getting yelled at, like one more sort of thing. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you did a good job. Let's pick it up tomorrow. And that changed me directionally big time. Yeah. I'm afraid of the person I would have become if I didn't listen to her in that moment. Yeah.
Wow. That was a good one. Okay. That's how you end the show.
Yeah. I'm not afraid. As like former MMA, former defensive lineman, 300, I am not afraid to say that was the fastest that we were walking and talking. I'm telling you, man, I crumbled like a baby. Like I looked up at her and I go, "What's wrong?" I go, "Am I sick?" And she's like, "No, you're realizing what it's." I'm like, "This is horrible." I'm like, "You're so right." You literally dropped me to my knees going like, "Whoa." But man, that's like the first and only time that's ever happened. And it was just so real. And it just cut to so much so quickly. It's like my brain and body didn't know how to react. So that was a really good lesson. Yeah.
That was awesome. Paul, thank you for your time. This has been a fantastic conversation. People, how do they follow you? Bulu, connect us with that.
Well, first of all, thank you for your time. Thank you for the listeners. If they made it this far, here's what I say, bulugroup.com, pauljarrett.com. But for anybody that's made it this far, entrepreneurs, whoever you are, it's just Paul at Bulu Group. You can drop me an email, toss an emoji in it. And that's particularly for entrepreneurs. When you're in that bad spot, I don't care who you are, if I don't know you or whatever, just drop me a line. Entrepreneurs need to know they can shout out into the ocean, and another entrepreneur will go, "Nope, I'm here too. I'm on an island. Like we're all here."
Yep. I love it.
Yeah, that's one way to get at me.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for offering that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And this has been the Profit Express with today's guest, Paul Jarrett, CEO of Bulu. And as he just said, if you listen this long in the podcast, I think my engineer told me we're about 50 minutes in. I originally told Paul, I said, well, the show probably runs about 30 minutes. Well, when they run beyond 30 minutes, it's because it was a really good show. So when you make it beyond 30, I certainly will. And for you listening, thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for being on board the Profit Express. And if you are a follower on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscription, the like, the bell, the whistle, the whole deal. You know how it is. Until next time, this is the Profit Express. Let's you, me, and everybody out there continue to win the battle for business.